Mixing homemade compost into your garden, coming up on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joey Baird. This show is dedicated to the average gardener, simple home living, and using what you already have. Today we're going to look at putting some compost in the garden, compost we made this year, in a spot that's been giving us a little problems. So follow me over there and we'll take care of it. Well, as you can see, the soil has got a clay consistency to it. So what we're going to do is take the compost that we have created over the summer with waste and yard waste and grass clippings and garden waste, and we're going to cover this area and work it in to get this a better soil consistency so stuff grows better come next year. So let's just Now we got the compost spread out. We don't have a whole lot. We only had a small container for compost this year. But as you can see, we've got some particles that haven't broke down. We've got some twine here. We've got an egg carton. So don't be concerned about that, because once you turn, you'll spade this under and that'll all break down over the winter and through the early spring next year. Some of these bigger pieces of stalk, that's not going to break down a whole lot, but it will over time, so don't get very concerned about that. So I'm going to spade this in and get this worked in the soil here. So now that we got it spaded in, we've got about 15-20 square feet here. And as you can see, it's very rough. I'm not going to put a whole lot of emphasis on getting it level and smooth and all the clods breaking up, because over the winter it'll break down a little bit more. But just because you have a little compost don't think you can't make a big effect on your garden. As you can see, this was very clay soil, and by next spring it'll help aerate and make the soil more fluffier, which will allow better root development and better harvest next fall. You know, kneeling pads come in all shapes and sizes at your local home and garden center, but you don't have to buy one. It's very easy to make one, and I'll show you how. Making your own kneeling pad is easy, fun, and economical. Now, you can probably just use the items you have already in your home. All we used was a roll of old vinyl we had and some styrofoam we had in the attic. Now, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. There's other options that you can use. This is a kneeling pad we've been using for about 3 years now. As you can see, we took some squares of carpeting that we had when the carpet man came by, and you could use that, put 2 or 3 of those together. You can also use, if that's not an option, cardboard. Cut it to whatever desired shape you want and stick 2 or 3 layers together, and you can glue them together, and that'll work well also. So we're just going to construct ours with the old vinyl. This is styrofoam core we've got. If you don't have vinyl laying around, you could use that old tarp you have in the garage. It's got the tears in it. You can cut some squares out of that and put it together. Some plastic, or if last resort, you can use some scraps of cloth and waterproof it with some spray. So all you want to do is you want to take your core, whatever that may be, and cut it to the shape that you want your kneeling pad to be. And then you want to extend the canvas or your outer shell an inch on each side wider than what the actual core is, because you're going to attach it with just regular office staples. And you'll just go around every couple inches and attach it . As you can see, it took very little time to make it out of some stuff you probably already had in the home, and you didn't have to go to a local home and garden center to buy one. But whatever you make your kneeling pad out of, just have fun with it.
As your new seed catalogs come in, here's like a way to repurpose your old seed catalogs before you put them into the recycling bin. A lot of us have these magnets laying around the house. They may be promotional magnets for a business that you don't frequent anymore. Something like this is a calendar from 2009, and obviously that's not appropriate anymore. So what you can do is you can turn them into these fun magnets. This is something you can do with kids, or you can do yourself. The thing I like about it is that if you do it with kids, it kind of teaches them about what different fruits and vegetables are out there, and it's a fun project to do. So what you do is obviously you just page through your old catalog and find pictures that you want to use. I'm gonna make one for this old calendar, and I found this picture of these pretty cherry tomatoes. So what you do is you cut it out of the magazine, leave some room so that you can properly frame your picture here, and then you just simply take a pen or whatever and then you trace around it. I always do the back so that if I mess up then you won't see my marks, but if you need to be more precise, obviously you might want to trace around the front. So I'm just going to trace around here, and then obviously you're going to cut it out. I usually try to cut on the more inside of the line so that it fits on top of the magnet more precise. And the fun part about this is that you can, like I said, you can teach the kids about different vegetables, different fruits, flowers, and give them something to do, especially, you know, right now obviously it's winter time and kids get, you know, kind of bored. So let me get this cut out here. Recycle that. And then what you do is you take your glue. You can use a glue stick, you can use some all-purpose glue, and I always just trace around the edges, and then I do in the middle a little bit. But before I put my picture on there, I usually take a Q-tip or something and kind of smear the glue around so that it sticks kind of evenly all throughout. Then you just position your picture on there. And the nice thing about this is you can kind of slide it around to make it look how you want to, and then you just smooth it down with your fingers. And now you have, after it dries, you have a fun magnet, something different. You repurposed it. Now for something like this, when you have smaller magnets, is I took actually one of my birthday cards and I cut out the picture I wanted. I pasted it to the inside of the birthday card, then I cut this square out, and then I just pasted the magnets on the back. And that way, that's repurposing those smaller magnets as well. So as you can see, it's a fun project you can do by yourself or with kids, and you can reuse items before you're gonna go ahead and get rid of them.
There are a few ways to ripen tomatoes without leaving them on the vine. We'll pull them off the vine just to keep animals from eating them just as they're starting to turn colors. Well, once you bring them in the house, what do you do with them? Some people leave them on a windowsill. We have two methods that work effectively for us. What these are plastic file trays that would be used in a cubicle. We'll put the tomatoes in the racking there to allow air circulation and to get more light penetration around the whole tomato, and we'll set these next to a window. Another method that we find very effective is taking your green tomatoes and putting them in just a plain old paper sack, closing it up, and letting it set on just in a dark area for a few days, and they'll be just as ripe as they would be on the vine. So just a few simple methods of ripening tomatoes in the house. Proper storage of your winter squash can increase the chances of a nice meal in the middle of winter and decrease the chances of spoilage. Now we store ours in these plastic trays here that we picked up along the side of the road on jump day. People throw them out. They come in towers of three. You buy at a craft store or a home improvement store, and they work well for butternut squash, some spaghetti squash, some acorn squash. Now over here we have our pumpkins. We constructed a two-level shelf with some old pallets, some small pallets and some scrap lumber. And it works well to give good air circulation to the pumpkins until it's time that we process them. Now in both situations, you want to look online or in books and figure out the proper cure time for your squash or your pumpkins before you bring them down the basement. Now if you don't have a basement, root cellar, or crawl space, where do you store your squash? Well, you can do it upstairs too. People store them underneath their bed, behind their couch, or even in the lower portion of a cabinet farthest away from the heat. Now true enough, it won't keep as long as it would in a basement or crawl space or cellar, but it does give you another option when storing squash in the home. Well, that's all the time we have. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. And mixing that compost in your garden in the fall will greatly benefit your plants, and you'll see a giant difference come next spring. And that magnet ideal, that's an educational craft you can do with the little ones in your life to teach them about gardening. For all of us here at the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, I'm Joy Baird, reminding you, take a child gardening and start growing some memories.
The show doesn't have to end here. You can continue the discussion on our Facebook page, keyword Wisconsin Vegetable Gardeners, and like the page. You can also email your questions, comments, or suggestions at thewiveggardener@gmail.com, and we may use your question on an upcoming show.